We got our first glimpse of the proposed budget by the Liberal government in Canada. This is exciting because Canada has not had a budget for 2 years, going back to 2019. So it's interesting to see how much debt we've accumulated, especially from all the lockdowns and coming through the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see where they want to deploy money, where they see Canada being in the future. And obviously the most important point is who is going to pay it all back. So stay tuned. We'll be going through all of those different topics. But if this is your first time here, my name's Nick. Welcome to Waste of Wealth. Huge favor, a huge ask. If you learn something new or you get some value out of the video, hit that like button for me. I would definitely appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button, turning that notification bell on. That would make me very happy. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack, so we'll jump right into it. We'll start with a BNN Bloomberg article talking about the 13 things that you need to know. The first thing is that our budget came in $30 billion less than what was projected the deficit to be. So it was originally projected that our shortfall would be $381 billion. It actually came in at 354. So we are starting out on the right tune. As for 2021, 2022, it's projected to be 154 billion. So things are definitely improving from last year, but we did have to deal with a lot of lockdowns last year, and obviously the Bank of Canada and the Canadian government had to print money in order to keep the economy afloat. So that is something that is well noted. Canada's debt to GDP ratio, it's traditionally a key metric for gauging the sustainability of the deficit, is forecasted to be at 51. So this is definitely really high, and something that was supposed to be put in as an anchor meaning that's our gauge, that's our target. Traditionally, Canada has been around like the 30% mark, so being at 50% is definitely alarming. And the fact that this number doesn't really decline for a long period of time is something that the critics came out and had a problem with. And it's going to steadily decline all the way to 49% in 2025-26. Something that I think will be, the Conservative government will bring this up. Obviously, this is only proposed. So in their amendments, they're going to want a fiscal anchor. They want a target. They want a goal in concrete. We have the extension of recovery benefits, the emergency rent subsidy, the lockdown support, emergency wage, that is going to be extended up until September. And this additionally will cost $12.1 billion. It's one of the most expensive line items of the budget overall. Something that the Liberals have been talking about next is the National Childcare Program. If you have children, I'm sure you're also aware that it is very expensive for daycare. So the Liberals have been talking about implementing a process to drive down the cost of childcare to $10 a day by 2025. They're also looking to cut current childcare costs in half by the end of 2022. This is expected to cost $30 billion over the next 5 years, and then 8.3 each year thereafter. So definitely something that is needed. I don't know if they have a plan per se, but that's just giving you an indication of how much they anticipate it's going to cost. Increasing old age security for 75 plus. This will be the feds will provide a one-time payment of $500 to pensioners who are 75 and older by next summer. And this measure is expected to cost $12 billion over the next 5 years. Tax on foreign-owned vacant homes. This is for all the foreign-owned homes that are unoccupied. They're going to have an annual 1% tax on the value of the home. and that's going to be applied to any non-Canadian citizen or permanent resident using Canada as a vacation home or a way to have foreign investments. $2.5 billion is going to be put towards affordable homes. This is something that is obviously plaguing a lot of people in our age group that can't afford their first home. Housing prices have spiked recently, so this is what the Canadian government is looking to do to help put some affordable homes in there. We also see a $15 minimum wage is looking to be put into place. I know that this is something that was a part of Joe Biden's platform down in the U.S., so it'll be interesting to see how quickly this gets put into place. Investing in the green economy, kind of going again with Biden with the Build Back Better, pushing the net zero accelerator. They basically want net zero emissions by 2050. We've also seen ways that they'll be investing in this in terms of, the cars, taking away gasoline cars out of there. So it'll be definitely an investing opportunity in the green economy, the green new future. Loans for home retrofits, the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, will be dispersing $4.4 billion worth of interest-free loans to homeowners looking to retrofit, capped at $40,000. That's basically if you want to improve your home or reduce the carbon footprint, making them more efficient. It expects more than 200,000 Canadian households to tap into the program. We also see some Indigenous infrastructure spending, $18 billion over the next 5 years. $6 billion will go towards the infrastructure, including water, etc. And then we'll also see digital services taxes. So Ottawa is making it official after years of mulling on the task. So this is for basically a company like Netflix, and they're going to impose a digital service tax of 3% of revenue. So this is definitely interesting. Applying to businesses with gross revenues of more than 750 million euros or 1.13 billion. Up until now, the likes of Netflix have not been required to collect and remit taxes from Canadian consumers to the federal government. So it'll be interesting to see these big tech companies and whether they're going to pass this on to the consumer, which is more likely than not. Funding for long-term care. The feds outlined $3 billion for long-term care facilities after senior homes proved to be the hardest hit. So those are the 13 things that BNN needs you to know. We're also going to be discussing the 15 things that you may have missed. Wage subsidy clawbacks on firms. So they're looking to go after any firms who may have gone after the wage subsidy, but they also increased the compensation to the executive staff. So the CRA and the Canadian government will be looking down and penalizing these companies that have misused. They're not going to go with the pharmacare program that has been talked about for a while, but they will continue to fund $500 million to high-cost drugs for rare diseases. You're also going to see Toronto-Quebec rail infrastructure. So they're going to be spending almost $500 million over the next 6 years to increase rail between Quebec City and Toronto. This will take away from the need for flights, so kind of fitting into the green side of things. It'll also take away traffic on that 401 corridor. We'll also see $960 million for jobs training, basically getting the employment class trained up to speed. So that's very interesting. $595 million will go to hiring programs, helping these smaller businesses as they reopen to get people back in working. We'll also see them targeting predatory lending. This is basically the likes of any of the credit unions that sit on the corner. They're going to try and like drop down the interest rate on payday loans. So that'll be interesting to see. I know that it's very expensive there. So they'll also be cutting credit card transaction fees. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. 1.9 will go to national trade corridors. So basically they want to build up things like CETA, which is the Canadian-European Free Trade Agreement. I know CPP is one that focuses in the Far East, not China, but some of the corresponding countries around there. So they're looking to build trade partners throughout the world, which is a great idea. Beefing up bilingualism. They're going to spend 180 million to make French more predominant across the country. They're going to cut government travel spending. This one I'm actually impressed with. They're forecasting a $1.1 billion saving over the next 5 years. So that seems pretty interesting. Happy with that one. Supports for salmon. Obviously, fishing has deteriorated a lot of like the salmon that sits on the East Coast. So they're going to be putting 647 million towards that over the next 5 years. Conserving the HMS and a couple boats that they found that were traveling the Northern Expedition. That's interesting. Tackling tax avoidance. So the CRA is getting another 304 million over the next 5 to scrutinize your tax returns or company's tax returns to make sure that the government gets all the money that they need. This one, wine support. This one was interesting because we talked about the Canadian wine industry and why I'm bullish on that. That was Andrew Peller. But they're going to be providing 101 million over the next 2 years to support Southern Ontario and Okanagan. Andrew Peller resides in both, so I'm super pumped about that. And funds for COVID testing for air travel, so 82.5 million to help Canadian airports with testing to make sure that travelers aren't spreading the disease around. So those are 15 things you may have missed. And how the budget aims at getting Canadians back to work. We see that 300,000 Canadians who had a job before the pandemic are still out of work. To support Canadian workers as we fight the third wave and to provide an economic bridge, we will build on the enhancements we've made. In addition to those, they'll be spending 960 million over 3 years for training programs, which we touched on. 470 over 3 years in new apprentice and trade grants, new legislation for $15 minimum wage, and 8.9 to expand Canadian workers' benefits. 4 billion over those years will be earmarked to help businesses adopt to new digital technologies, training, financing, as well an additional 7.2 for the Strategic Innovation Fund, life sciences, auto, aero, agriculture. I know that they're going to be touching on quantum computing, and another one was genomics. So those are 2 areas that I heard them speak about in the press conference when Chrystia Freeland and Trudeau proposed this to the Senate. And this brings me on to who is going to be paying for this. This is a lot of money. I know some of it's spread over the next 5 years, but it seems to be large sums of money. First and foremost, cigarettes are going up. Vapes are going up. We heard them talk about luxury cars and luxury boats. They will be getting taxed. Foreign digital businesses. We talked about the Netflix example. The 3% of revenue is going to be taxed, and the empty homes. This was one of the 1% of the non-Canadian citizens, or the vacation homes or investment properties that non-Canadians have here. So that's it's just some of the ways. Obviously, the Liberal government is trying to get reelected, so they don't want to push the bar too much. But when we look at the deficit that we've incurred, there's no doubt in my mind that taxes will continue to increase. This is just pushing the bar a little bit, and then when they get reelected, or whoever gets reelected, taxes will increase to drive this down. We also saw Chrystia Freeland write an interesting piece here. If you've been lucky enough or smart enough or hardworking enough to afford to spend $100K on a car or $250K on a boat, congratulations. And thank you for contributing a little bit of that good fortune to help heal the wounds of COVID and invest in our future collective prosperity. So she wrote that in the budgets forward. They're basically pushing the bar a little bit, like I mentioned before. They're basically, Biden has talked about it before, that the wealthy will pay for this. They will spend in any way they can, and they're going to expect the wealthy. So there's a couple things that might come out of that. The wealthy may flee the country. They may look to go to places where, the tax rate isn't so high. We've seen that in the US with people leaving New York and going to Florida where there's no state tax. So that's something that could happen in Canada, and something to definitely watch out for. But at the end of the day, there is a large sum of money that needs to get paid back. I know that there's the Conservative government might try and push a little bit more of what's your plan. It's nice to have a number on a piece of paper, but what's your plan? Give me a step-by-step of how you are going to implement this childcare process. It seems like the numbers are just figurative and put down on a piece of paper. So it'll be interesting to see if the Liberal government does indeed have a playbook, a plan, something there. But basically, we see the clean energy plays. If you're looking on an investment standpoint, we see that there is a lot of spending that's going to happen. So taxes will increase. So on the forefront, play clean energy. On the back end, make sure that you are doing your best job to pay as little taxes as possible. Obviously, reach out to your tax guy or girl and see if there's ways that you can help drive that down, because the rates will continue to increase. But I hope you enjoy this synopsis of the proposed budget. We can definitely touch on it later when it becomes finalized. And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. I hope everybody has a great week on the markets. Happy trading.